Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We have a wonderful day. Welcome to RenéMarie Stroke of Luck. I'm RenéMarie, as everybody probably knows. We have an exceptional show today, but I just want to share that Judy won't be with us today. She has some personal situations going on, but of course, this broadcast cannot happen without her all the time. And we miss her, and we're very grateful for everything she's done for the last 10 years for this show. So I just want to make sure I start out with that. Also, Jim, our technical engineer, he has, as everybody knows, for a few weeks, he's had, for a few months, he's had spinal cord injuries. For many years, he's had that, but he's been in and out of the hospital lately. So we're praying for Jim as well. Today we have Randy. He's going to guest co-host with me. He was on the last show. Randy, of course, is from Madhouse TV and from Village Connection, a really dear friend for since 2016, Randy, I think.
Yes.
2016. He actually watched a movie, forget, what's the name of it, Randy?
Flawless.
Flawless. I actually said it wrong on the press, but you know, you make mistakes and you fix them. That's all. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to chat a little bit about that. But I want to tell you some exciting stuff we have going on. I don't know if everybody read the press, but let me see where it is so I don't mess anything up, because I always do. We have what's going on. We have the for the next show, we have an artist, Robin, on, who is an incredible artist, provided to us via Ginny Warner. She's one of our board members. Tune in, that's next month at September 16th. This is really exciting. We got Stroke Warrior Radio. Stroke Warrior Radio. This is really exciting, everybody. We want to say thank you so much for Ralph for inviting RenéMarie Stroke of Luck podcast and TV show to join your Stroke Warrior Radio. We're thrilled to be a part of the global streaming platform reaching 28 countries. So you all are going to reach out to 28 countries. So it's really important stuff. We're deeply grateful for the opportunity. As always, we believe that together we are lifting our voices and changing the face of stroke and aphasia locally and around the globe. And by the face, I mean the misconception that strokes only happen to your grandparents. So that is really important. And of course, Ralph is the founder of the Stroke Warrior Radio, which I invited Ralph to be a guest co-host on the show one week, and he's gonna 1 month, and he's gonna join us. Bob Kern and I will be performing at the Elmwood Park Senior Resource Center, the senior celebration, on October 5th, 2024. So look for that on the website. You can find it on our channel. We have our telethon going on November 5th, I believe it is. November 5th. Yep. We have a telethon going on, 10 years we're working on. And then one of the most exciting things is my Unconditional Love concert, which is scheduled for April 4th. 2025, April 4th, April 5th, sorry, Saturday, April 5th. So we have in the foundation, we got a lot of stuff going on, and we're so blessed to keep doing the work. It's a lot of work, and we love what we do. And that's where this panel comes in today. We're so honored and privileged to have Randy Unger as our guest co-host. Randy is, of course, what do you do, Randy? I gotta... But your exact title, tell us what you do.
Film critic and host for Sirius XM and Manhattan Neighborhood Network. And I also interview actors and filmmakers and basically cover the film scene in New York City.
Yeah, I follow you. You're doing wonderful work. And he also had that movie that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But let me introduce Samantha to everybody. Samantha's someone that I've met through my primary job in Radburn. Samantha came, I think it was because of yoga. Somebody connected us because of yoga. And I believe there's always a divine intervention. And I know that Misty and Chris believe that as well. I'm unsure of your faith in all that, Randy. But, you know, it's bigger than just the yoga. It was about us working together to bring healing to everybody, to bring love to everybody, to bring joy. And not only is Samantha, I'm going to let you share a little bit of exactly what you do so I don't screw it up, but she's also into holistic and yoga and that world, but she's also into music. And I think she brings healing through her music with the intention of doing that. And that's what I love about you. So Samantha, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. That was very well done. Actually. But yes, my approach to helping support people in their healing journey definitely began with yoga because it supported me from, when I started practicing yoga in my early 20s. But the reality is that I always kind of wanted to understand the underlying workings of why something would support you, or the understanding of even the background and the why, the physiology of it. So the deeper I geeked out on the topic, I expanded into a lot of anatomy, physiology, nervous system regulation, and somatics more recently, which is essentially anything that's related to healing or a holistic approach to wellness regarding the body. Soma just means body in Latin, right? So anything that is movement or breath work related is going to be automatically somatic in nature. And one of the things that I do with clients now is essentially help you to get into your body and out of the whirlwind of thoughts and tasks and responsibilities and roles that are just, and maybe even that inner critic that's always kind of like nagging you, and into your body so we can feel again. A lot of us are kind of, in this world where we're just trying to accomplish, we're trying to go, and we're trying to live according to what's happening externally all of the time. And it's really hard to remember how to just pause, be still, and actually be with your inner experience. So that is exactly the way that I help clients now. So now I still teach yoga. I actually have a home studio that I'm building out here. And I also support clients one-on-one, and I'm launching a group coaching program that's somatics and nervous system regulation. So the music came, as a byproduct of the healing that I'm doing, because I always say this is like me taking my inner child healing very, very seriously. Like, I'm not just going to talk about all these things that I wanted to do. I'm going to just start the band at age 38. Like, I'm just going to start the band. I'm going to start singing. I'm going to start doing all these things that little Sam wanted to do. And it's amazing. It's been fantastic. Singing in itself is also somatic in nature, obviously. And I always wanted to understand why I felt so good when I would sing, right? This is like inner feeling of just peace and like authenticity and, this genuine feeling of just being like present, right? So I've been able to incorporate that more into my life, and I get to have this big event that I'm planning for my 40th birthday at the end of September, which is kind of like, my friend called it my coming of age, because I'm just going to be singing all night.
Good.
So you're all invited.
Oh, good. Where is it?
It's actually going to be here in Glen Rock, which is, right, the town over from Fairlawn here. It's called Stone and Rail. It's this great restaurant.
Great restaurant.
And they have live entertainment there a lot.
Yeah.
I just wanted to keep it like relaxed, right? So we've played there a few times already, and I said, you know what, let's just have it here.
Yeah. I think when I perform, it gets me out of the thinking process. That's something that for our Language of Love concert, we're really, Krista Misty, I spoke about this to them last week when we just chatted, that we want to like have an arch when you walk in to the place, and we're unsure where it's going to be, but that arch is going to be like, we're going to ask everybody to please try to leave your troubles behind just for the time that you come in, because we really want to let you have a peaceful, joyful experience. And I'm gonna try to lift everybody. So and I think that's what happens with me, that it's just an escape for me, that I get to get into that world. Yes, there's tough stuff happening in the world, there's tough stuff happening in everybody's lives, but like I said before in the Zoom green room, we're blessed to get up every morning, right? No matter how hard our days are. We're blessed to get up to everybody. I want to share with everybody, please feel free to chime in with your thoughts anytime. This is really a conversation, not so much an interview. So thank you so much, Samantha. We'll get back to you on that. But we want to now introduce Misty and Chris, who we were talking before. We met over LinkedIn because Chris wrote a book, A Stroke of Blessings. Is that what it's called?
That is correct, yes.
And mine is Stroke of Luck, and we just like zoomed into each other and connected. And Chris has a really incredible story, but not only does Chris have an incredible story, Misty is an important part of his story, because without Misty, Chris wouldn't be here, because Misty is the one that was his angel and really fought for him when he couldn't hear. And that was another thing that we spoke about last time, is that Chris was in a coma and he could hear Misty talking to him. And that really is an important piece for people to think, that when their families are in a state that you're thinking they're not hearing you, they are hearing you. When my father was in ICU, when he was in the hospital in ICU a few times, but I think this was the first time we played the song Love by Natalie Cole over and over and over and over and over and over in his room, so that he knew like we loved him and he was present and we were there and he was never alone. So Chris and Misty, they're doing incredible work. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves a little bit, but I know some of the stuff that we want to touch on today, along with everybody else's stories and what they're doing in the movie information, is we're going to talk about locked-in syndrome, which I never heard of that before. We're going to talk about looking at fluorescent lights, which we never heard about that either. Samantha, I don't know if you have any inkling into how to heal that, and Randy, please feel free to join in. And supplements for warriors, that's something that Chris has started. And then we're going to do a whole show, and I don't know if you know this, Samantha and Randy, that there's horse therapy. Did you know that there's horse therapy?
I think it's called equine therapy, something like that.
Incredible. Because to me, I mean, horses, just when I go near them, they're just, magical, So
there's a place here in Bergen County that actually gives you the opportunity to spend time with horses for that purpose.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. We'll have to schedule it and go out. Okay. I would love to schedule and go out and then get them on the show to talk about it. That would be incredible. So Misty, Chris, introduce yourselves, even though I shared a little bit of information.
You want to go first?
Sure. So I'm Misty and I'm Chris's caregiver. I'll just do a quick little rundown. Chris, March 31st, 2016, 1:06 p.m. He had his first stroke and he was quickly transported to an emergency room where his symptoms were actually starting to subside by the time he got there. So the doctor did not actually think he was having a stroke, so he didn't receive treatment. He was kept overnight for observation, had a massive stroke the very next morning, but they thought it was seizures, so they still didn't diagnose properly. And they thought that it was possibly meningitis. So when they went to do a spinal tap, because he had all that pressure on his brain, he actually died. He was resuscitated, intubated, and in a coma. And he was in a coma for about 7 days. We were told if he woke up, his best case scenario would be like Christopher Reeves. He would never, walk again, breathe on his own, or any of those things. So the fact that he's sitting here today to us is a divine miracle. Even his neurosurgeon, his brain surgeon says, there's just absolutely no explanation as to how he's here. Why he was in his coma, he had a third stroke. He had a hemorrhagic stroke. So his brainstem was affected. The sensory center, the mobility center, pretty much he was written off. And it was suggested to us that we seriously consider what Chris's life might be like if we chose to let him live. My husband was a really, really faithful man prior to his strokes, more so today.
Yeah, even more so today.
And he had an incredible drive. He was a cross-country runner. when he was younger and transitioned his body into a power lifter. He was bench pressing over 600. And
That was prior to his stroke?
yeah, just prior to his
Because I've
stroke.
seen him in the gym lately, so that's, you know.
Yeah, that's his motivation. That's what keeps him going. And I tell you, well, I don't want to jump ahead, but they, you know, they were wrong, you know, and then when I just had this feeling that if it was my husband, I knew that he would want a chance. He would at least want to say, let me prove you wrong, you know, because that's how he was. He was like that with everything. And I never share my goals with Chris because he holds me accountable to the point of annoyance.
I do.
Yeah. So the morning that he woke up, you know, it's one of those mornings where the sun was coming in the room and ICU was dead silent other than the beeping of all the machines. And typically it's really chaotic in there. And it was just so quiet. And I just had this amazing feeling come over me. And I knew at that moment that my husband was either passing away, going to the other side, or having a conversation with God. I didn't know which. Honestly, I thought he was going home. And I did not expect him to wake up that day, and they did not expect him to ever wake up. He opened his eyes later on that day, and I immediately asked him if he saw God. And we had kind of put together a little communication system, blink once for yes, twice for no, because he was paralyzed from the neck down. And he had what's called locked-in syndrome, where you can only blink your eyes. So as soon as I asked him that, which I already knew the answer, but, you know, I asked him, did you see God? And, you know, he blinked once for yes. And I had to wait a very, very long time to hear his story, because he was paralyzed and he couldn't talk and he was trached for a long time. And he had to learn how to rewrite and retalk and rewalk and you name it, everything. He was just a gigantic toddler.
And I still am.
No, you're a good guy. So, so it's been a long journey, and Chris was determined to share his testimony, his experience that he had while he was in his coma, the things that he experienced. And so he put that in writing. And a lot of people, you know, said, wow, a stroke, you know, it could have been the worst thing to happen to someone. And, you know, Chris said, one day he said, actually, it was a blessing. It was a stroke, a blessing. Saved our marriage.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, we were in a rough spot right before. It's probably why you had a stroke. No. You know, it was the market was going. It was what, 2008. We were.
You were real estate agents.
Yeah, both in real estate. So the market took a dive. Yeah, so our checking account took a dive. We filed bankruptcy. We lost our homes, lost our cars, lost everything, and you know, all those things that you think are important. You know, you at some point you have to understand the material things in this world you can't take with you when you go anywhere.
Yeah.
So do they, you know, what value do they really have? It's not those things that we need to be finding value in.
Before I forget, on that note, I'm going to let you finish. But Samantha, in a little bit, let's talk about breath, because breath is the most
and stress.
Yes, breath is the most important.
Yeah.
The most important thing. And Randy, you can chime in. We're going to talk about the movie as well, but chime in about if there's any movies about breath that you know about that we could watch as well. I'm always throwing loops at people, but so go ahead.
Well done.
That's okay. I was just going to say,
if I don't say it at that particular time,
I get it.
You'll lose
I
it.
get it. It's gone. Yeah.
Speaking of breath and stress, you can imagine a series of studies was done on Chris afterwards. You know, blood specialist, heart specialist, Caesar, I mean, you name it, they ran the test. He was never given a definitive medical explanation as to why he had the strokes. Didn't run in the family, wasn't a history, never happened before. So we really feel it was stress. We feel it was a combination of, you know, unhealthy living, fast food. Chris was very, very successful. He ran an area from Sarasota to Marco Island, which is a good 2.5 hour or so drive. You know, his area that he covered in real estate. You know, and he was. I think we were just running on fumes,
Yeah,
you know, and not
yeah.
balancing life out. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so I'd love to talk with Sam, and you know, that has been our goal. And one of the things we've really been working on is trying to find that balance, especially with our new normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you didn't get to say anything.
Oh, that's okay. I'm Chris. Okay.
You did a really good job.
Thank you.
Chris, but I know Misty shared all the information, but to me, and this is what I always say is, how did it feel, right? Because Misty can talk about all the details, but tell us how it felt. How did it feel?
Having locked-in syndrome, or
just to experience all that. You know, I mean, I know
To be in a coma.
yeah,
Yeah.
with different emotions and you know, and with me, I had an issue, and that's the wrong word. I had once I had a brain trauma, trust became a problem for me. To trust. And I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that until I always talk about him, a gentleman, Dominic Cortellessa, came into my life, and God took me away from the best job I've ever had in my entire life, working for Pumptonian Food Service. They're an incredible food service in our area. I don't think they do Fair Lawn, but they are an incredible food service, really family oriented. I would work, you know, you'd work really hard during school times, but then you were laid off at Christmas time. You're laid off at, you know, Easter time. You were laid off during the summer. You had it was a great life. It was a great lifestyle. But God's like, I don't want you there because you're not going to learn anything from that. You know?
Exactly.
And one time I even blacked out at work. And it was like, why did she black out? She doesn't know, you know, there was no reason, but it was like, and I heard God saying to me, like, you need to move. You need to move on. Because as great as that job was, it wasn't the place that I was going to meet Dom. And then I got laid off, and then not laid off, but I quit my job because it was the second time that something unhealthy happened to me. And it was a long period of time that I didn't have a job. And then I went for this job, you know, in Wanacue, and, you know, and Dom and I slowly started building, you know, a business relationship. But he was a great leader he was the president of the board for that at that time. And he has learned through working for Citicorp around the world. He was a big corporate guy working for Citicorp, but he knew how to engage with every of his employees, right? He would sit down, he'd listen to you, he would talk to you. And eventually, like, those lessons really started to jive with me. And I always remember, and this I always tell him because he's my dear friend till this day, is I always remember him saying, well, we'll come back and talk about that. Think about it. We'll come back and talk tomorrow. So it left the door open, but he made me do the work. He made me figure out how to do it. He didn't do it for me, because if he would have did it for me, I would have learned how to stand on my own and be here today. So he was really an important part of my life, but I had to leave a great job. It was like, it wasn't the place I needed to be. So we spoke about that the other day when we were chatting as well, how, you know, you guys are moving now, right?
Yeah.
You're moving because you got to move. When you got to move, you got to move. You know?
Yeah, you can't be, I'm a firm believer, you can't be comfortable. I mean,
I disagree.
When you get comfortable, it's dangerous. In other words, you want to try and grow, and I think the master plan for all of us is to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. I mean, that's what we're called to do. And yeah, that was a very scary time for me. It was a scary time, but also a time where I realized more and more than ever, that for me, it's faith. I mean, if it wasn't for, you get to the point where it's you and God, period. There's no one else. Okay. So it's either you're going to heaven or you're going to wake up and continue with life. And until you get to the point where you're comfortable with either way it goes, then it's going to be, it's a tough situation, because when you can hear what everyone is saying in your coma, and they're telling my loved ones, my wife, my kids, my parents were there, to pull the plug, and you're trying to communicate, please don't pull the plug. But you can't communicate, so you're locked in, you're stuck, and you have a thought, but nothing can come out, and all you can do is move your eye, and all you see is I talk about fluorescent lights, because that's all you see, because you got to think you're propped up in bed, and that's what you look at. So Misty knew enough to know to bring her head in front of me, so I could see her, and that would give me encouragement to keep going. And
I would actually ask the professionals to kindly step out of the room.
Yeah.
If anything was going to be said in his presence that wasn't positive, I just wanted them to talk outside the room. I didn't want Chris to hear anything that was negative, that would send, I don't know, a message that he couldn't recover. Because, the mind is a very powerful, it's a tool if we use it right. Yeah. And I would ask them, please, let's don't talk about that in the room. And they would get frustrated with me, but I would just walk out and they'd have to follow me.
We're going to let Samantha touch on that, the mind and stuff, in 2 minutes. But I want, if you excuse me for 1 second, I want to get to Randy, because it really, the movie Flawless really ties in to this program. And it's so interesting the way God, I don't know how everybody else's faith, but how serendipity, I'll call it today, because I'm unsure everybody's faith, but how the movie just ties in, and we didn't plan any of this stuff. Like, we didn't say, let me have Chris and Misty, let me have Samantha, let me have Randy. Like, it just kind of evolved, and this was it. So Randy, tell us, I watched the movie, and like I said in my press, when I was first watching it, I'm like, oh, like, it was a lot of shootings and a lot of language and a lot of and I'm like, oh my God, can I share that on my press? But Robert De Niro did an extraordinary job, and I'm gonna let Randy take it.
Of course he did.
Yeah, and I recommend you watch it, not for the gore.
We will watch it. We'd love to watch it.
We're gonna watch
the way that, and go ahead, Randy. I don't want to take it away from you. Go ahead.
So basically, Flawless, it's a film from 1999, and it stars Robert De Niro, the great Robert De Niro, as a former security guard who one night decides to help his neighbor, and in doing so, he suddenly has a stroke in the middle of a stairwell, I believe it was. And basically, the rest of the film is him trying to, come to grips with this, this issue he's having. And along the way, he befriends a drag queen who also lives in this building, who does singing lessons, and so basically uses these singing lessons in his rehabilitation. And in the same time, there's like gangsters that are going after the drag queen, and it's like a crazy adventure throughout this apartment building in New York City. And I mean, it's heartfelt. It's also really funny. It does have violence, but I don't think that's the main thing, Renee. But
I get it. I get it. But you know what? The thing is, I knew it was about stroke, so that was why I continued to watch it. But the first few minutes were like, oh my God, what
Just
am
to get you engaged. Just to get you
They needed to do the stroke first to get me engaged. Because you know why? I'll tell you why. Because we're talking today, you don't want that negativity in your life. You don't want it. You don't want that. You don't want to think about it. There's enough happening in the world.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, with all that. So, but Randy recommended that I watch the movie.
Yes.
So I stayed and I watched it. And one of the things that I got out of it was the bond that was created between the drag queen and Robert De Niro.
Right.
And also the way that she music was her escape, you know, because she was a drag queen, and I think she was he, right? And when he went home for his mother's funeral, he came back and he sat on the steps. I tapped into all that stuff, how music was really a wonderful
Yeah.
way for him to escape. And that was, it's almost like when I sing, anybody could do anything in the world, but that's my voice. Nobody could touch that. And I'll tell you, after my stroke for 2 years, I couldn't sing. And that was harder to me than not being able to talk, because that's the way that I express myself. I get lost in that. And that's something that this time on my Unconditional Love concert, and I say this to Kristen, Misty, and they know they have to support me through this, is at this concert, I really need to stay present for myself. And Samantha, I'll need your help too. And Randy, I need your help to not worry about what everybody else is feeling and everybody else is doing, but to stay present and to speak from my heart and to speak honestly, authentically. I do it on this show, but sometimes when I'm performing, I don't know how you are, Samantha, when you're performing, I don't think you do this because I've watched you perform, but I worry about like who's happy, who's not happy. Am I seeing somebody smile? Am I, if they like it, or they, and there's been times where I've been doing a song and like somebody's not happening, and I'll end the song. Okay, I'll do this song, like rather than this song. And I always stay true to the songs that I know people are going to like, rather than the songs that really mean something to me. So this concert is about me expressing myself, telling my story through music, and leaving everybody with like rocking when they leave. Like we're gonna let people rock when they leave, so that they know that there's hope out there, and that there's another place. But Randy, that was a really very interesting movie.
I just also want to say that the drag queen was played by the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Wow.
Oh,
Fantastic actor. He left us way too soon. He was only in his mid 40s, and just a fantastic actor. This movie really, continued to impress me with his body of work. So, yeah, if anything about a stroke victim, it has just overall great performances.
Yes, yes, and I said that it's like when everybody watches, you'll see the way that Robert De Niro walks like us, Chris, and he talks like us, and he sounds like us, and I really connected with him on that level, that like somebody who, because that's what I say all the time, like doctors and insurance companies and nurses, physical therapies, and all that kind of stuff. Yes, they can help us, but do they really understand what it feels like to have suffered a stroke, what we're going through, how our minds are not there's no boundaries in our minds, that we could just we're all over the place, and that Dr. taught me to have boundaries and to set boundaries for myself. But there's a disconnect, and this is one thing I always try to work on with everybody is, yes, there's a stroke patient or stroke survivor, and then there's the boundary kind of world. How do you get from here to there? Like, how do you bridge that gap? I don't know. Samantha, you may be able to tap into that a little bit.
oh my goodness. My brain is like a ping pong of
I know.
this is lighting up, this is lighting up. And it's tough, right? Because I always like to say up front, I'm not a medical professional. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of those moments where I go, I don't have the authority or the qualifications to speak on this. But the gray area on that is, like you said, a lot of times when you're dealing, you're in the medical world and you're in the hospital and things like this, and you're surrounded by doctors, and there's an experiential and a subtle space of the experience that they're not understanding. And I think that when it comes to traditional medical training, it's in line with an older way of looking at things, which is very black and white and very dualistic in nature. So either you have this diagnosis or you have it in your genes or you don't, for example, right? Without going so deep into it. And that's one of the things that lit up when Chris was talking about, you know, this is not this, you know, you don't have family members with history of stroke, stuff like that. And like genetics is a thing. It's definitely something that can give you a predisposition. But the reality is that we're living, it's more, that's like lower on the list of why something would happen. And it's more about whether your genes are going to mutate or turn on or off. You could also have that predisposition and it could never come to fruition. There are people who have, you know, stuff in their history that never comes to fruition. I have heart disease, I have gastro stuff in my family history, I have alcoholism in my family history. These are a lot of things that are kind of there, but they're not, you know, these genes are not turning on to a level where I have major symptoms, right? And it's also worth noting that you can have symptoms without having this, like, you have this, it's a diagnosis. Now it's like a part of your identity. How is that going to help you mentally and energetically and emotionally if we're like, you have this? This is like, you know, can I
chime
in?
Jump in. If I don't. Now, another thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, is sometimes when somebody says you have something, you can't latch onto it, right? If you latch onto it and believe you have it, then you'll start to create it in yourself.
100%.
Talk to us about that.
That's how your physiology works, literally.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I always like, you know, how I said, this is just, it's so funny. It was like later on in life that I realized what a geek I am. Like I never really understood that part of myself. But when I, you know, hear things like this, it's a matter of understanding the why, right? So going into your physiology, it simplifies things in a way that, and I feel like knowledge is power in this way because it gives you a real snapshot of like what is going on. Your brain, for example, and this is like obviously the most relevant, you know, and anatomically for this conversation is like your brain is there for survival for the most part. It's survive, not thrive. So essentially it's a machine, just like any, I mean, it's literally like a machine that is learning continuously and banking memory and memories that are going to be able to tell you whether a situation, this is oversimplifying completely, but, you know, tell you whether or not a situation is safe or not, whether you are safe or under threat.
Yeah.
And then there are parts of the brain that are going to fire off emotion based on that first, you know, that first differentiation. I'm safe, I'm not safe. And then there are emotions that come off of that.
And I don't mean to interrupt, but
go.
That's a great. Here's what, as a survivor, you have to. The brain is our central control tower of our entire body, and you have to train your brain to push past the point where it wants to shut down for safety reasons. And people that have not had strokes don't quite understand, and that's what we're trying to give hope to so many. Because you have to, that's why I say don't be comfortable. You have to train that. You have to train your brain to go, yeah, this hurts and this sucks. But guess what? If you go a little bit further, it's going to be awesome. And that's what we're trying to encourage.
Yeah. Well, and bring awareness in the way that doctors communicate to them, because they tell you when you wake up everything you're not going to be able to do.
Yes.
He wasn't told the possibilities of what he may be able to overcome, you know, achieve. You're never going to walk again. You're going to be in a wheelchair, you know, that type of, and I think mentally how we even hear things, you know, your brain is just, it can be very powerful.
And see,
it's writing a program continually.
Yeah, and a lot of people see when they would hear that would discourage him.
You were different.
For me, it was watch me.
Yeah,
just give me a shot.
And thank God for that.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who have, you know, a history, be it via childhood, you know, stories that were given to them, what they learned, what they watched, what was modeled for them, that they would never be able to have that mentality around something.
Right.
I'll give you a very personal example, actually, because at this present moment, my father-in-law is in the hospital for the nth time, essentially for chronic colitis that has been an issue since he's been a really, really young kid. And he's had surgeries, and it's just his entire life has been just battling this disease. And I can tell you that his trauma includes feeling like a burden to his entire family because of that disease, because of that continual thing that they all had to sort of deal with when it came to his health, right? And I can tell you that it does not help his ability to stay positive. If anything, it shifts him often into the mindset of, I am a burden and I should just go, right? So like in other words, these are all things that, and it's not just the story, you know, you do have that, right? Most of us with some level of self-awareness can identify that there's definitely like this voice that tells you that, either that, right? No, like I'm pushing through, right? A lot of times it's going to obviously be based off what was modeled for you. Or there's the voice of, you know, you're not good enough, you're a burden, you're inconveniencing people, you are, you know, this and that. And it's a pattern. It's like not just like this, you know, where does it come from? You know, the story that just kind of like ends up there. It's actually how your brain absorbs information, and there's a story that's being written there. A lot of the time that story is there because you had to buy into that story in order to remain safe in your circle, in your family, your circle, your community, when you were still developing. If you didn't buy into that, you were the black sheep, or you were the disruptor, or whatever it was. And there are plenty of people who have that type of energy about them from birth, and that's fantastic. And some people move beyond that. And then, you know, there's, you know, so many directions that story can go in too. But the reality is that there's so much that gets sort of programmed and embedded in you. And I just wanted, you know, from as you're developing, when you're vulnerable, right? You had mentioned something about trust. Oh, it was Renee who mentioned something about trust, right? Your inability to feel comfortable trust. When you think about it, that is literally essentially the definition of feeling safe, is being able to trust the environment that you're in. So it makes full sense that also, I mean, I say it makes full sense, right? I mean, but the reality, and I think that, you know,
it makes sense to the average person. It doesn't make sense to somebody who suffered a stroke because they've had this brain shock.
Oh, yes.
And you know,
yes, absolutely.
That's what I try to help people to understand. Yeah, doctors and everybody, and I don't mean to keep into pointing doctors, but I'm saying a general person can't say to a stroke patient, well, you need to learn how to do this, because there is no, you got to need to learn how to do it. You know, because you don't know what's going on in our brains. You know what I'm saying? You don't know. So you got to give us the time to build that trust back to, and that's what Dom did over years. It took Dom years. I worked there 10 years. It took like, you know, took a good 5 or 6 or 7 years for me to fully trust that this person has my back. He will never do anything. I could say anything I want to him and we'll work through it. That's like the ultimate in trust. That's the open. Before we finish, I wanna let Randy chime in about Robert De Niro. Did Robert De Niro, I don't remember, did he have any negativity around him? Did he have, because with those 2 women that he was seeing, right? Did he have negativity with them about his stroke? Touch about that.
Yeah, so I think so basically before he had the stroke, he was kind of a ladies' man, excuse me, and he would frequently go to like this dance club, or I think it might have been a brothel. It's a little unclear there, but he goes to this place. He's like the man, you know, he walks into the room, everybody respects him, but as soon as he gets the stroke, he kind of becomes a recluse from society. He just stays in his apartment, sitting in the darkness, totally depressed. But I think throughout the course of the film, he does find hope. I know that might be a bit of a spoiler, but he does find hope and friendship with the drag queen, which is really special. It's a really wonderful movie. And it actually, during this conversation now, I thought of actually another Robert De Niro movie called Awakenings from 1990. I don't know if you guys have seen it, where he plays, I think he's a Parkinson's disease victim, and he awakes from a catatonic state and befriends a doctor played by Robin Williams. And it's an incredible movie. De Niro was nominated for the Oscar for it. It's from 1990. It's called Awakenings. And coincidentally enough, it is another Robert De Niro film.
Yeah. And Robin Williams. I mean,
Yes.
just think about that mind. That mind was incredible, but we didn't know what was going through his head. You never know what's going through somebody's head. And I said that the one time we did a show about depression, and I was having a really bad week. A lot of stuff going on in my life. It was really hard. And I started the show off by saying, yes, I'm here with a smile. I'm doing my work. But I want you to know, you don't know what's actually going on in my brain. Because like, if I was somebody else that didn't learn how to navigate everything by Dom, I wouldn't be here. I would have canceled. I wouldn't, but I thought it was really important for that moment to come on and to share that and to have that discussion with everybody. And maybe God had me go through that week so that I could actually feel what it felt like for my audience, right? So
can I say something about your trust, your courage to share, right? Your own experience. The reality is that a lot of us were taught that like some certain emotions are good and certain emotions are bad. And again, it's like that dualistic way of thinking. It's like good or bad, right? And that, being sad or needing to slow down or needing to rest is somehow weakness and all of that. I think that safety comes for our entire community when we can courageously share and vulnerably share where we're at, because it not only just puts it down and gives you the opportunity to not live like this, like in contraction and without flow. It gives you the opportunity as a person to open up and to rewrite the story of it is safe for me to be real and genuine and authentic with people, but it also gives everybody else the opportunity and the invitation to do exactly the same thing. She's showing up authentically. She's sharing that it's okay to not be okay and that times are hard right now. And then it gives everyone else the opportunity to live that way.
Yeah. And that's what I love about Chris and Misty, because they live that every day. They have a Twitter. Talk about your Twitter, your what is it? Not Twitter,
it's TikTok.
We've got TikTok, Instagram. Our kids talked us into starting this February. We called it TikTok. We didn't even know. But it's grown. Now we've got 25,000 plus followers, I think, just on one of the platforms. But it's been great because we're actually talking. We have people all over the globe. I mean, here's the thing: stroke is a serious. When you dive into this thing, there are so many millions of people.
And stroke doesn't discriminate.
No
I mean,
discrimination.
it'll take a newborn. It'll take, an adolescent. It's just not, doesn't care what color you are, doesn't care your age. We've had parents come on that have had children that have had strokes at 18 months. We had one lady that came on, her child had a stroke in her womb. Why not born yet? And so there needs to be, more of an awareness. And also what you were talking about was sharing the feelings. That is one of the best things that we found that has been really helpful is, he does a lot of lives on his TikTok, and he'll talk to people and he'll say, yeah, no, this sucks, but this is what we got to deal with, people hear his story and they're like, wow, okay, so you made it out of that. You know, Chris's chance of survival was 3% for the locked-in syndrome. And then he's one of only a few hundred people that have recovered from locked-in syndrome. There is a movie out there, since you film critic, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly.
Mhm.
Excellent movie.
Yes.
As a documentary on Netflix. It's a gentleman's journey of, you know, his stroke and locked-in syndrome. But other than that one movie, we haven't really seen anything on
Not a whole lot
locked-in
on
syndrome.
locked-in syndrome.
You
and
know,
it's,
I don't know. I was told to go get the book while he was still in his coma, because if he woke up, that's what he would have. You know, and that's what I read while he was in his coma and watched on Netflix in the hospital in the waiting room. And this gentleman doesn't make it, so you know, but he writes his book by blinking. So he has an assistant that for every letter, she would go through the alphabet and point at the letter, and he would blink when that was the letter of the word he wanted to spell. And that's how he wrote his book of his journey. So it's really, really great movie.
Can I chime in for 1 second? Believe it or not, we only have 5 more minutes.
Okay.
The time just flies.
Wow.
So can I invite you all back for another show so we can continue this conversation? And one of the things we're going to watch is that movie, the what is it called? The Diving Bell.
Oh, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly.
And we also need to watch, I don't know if you if you review documentaries as well, but what's Different Strokes? There's a comedian who had
we watched that actually. That was great.
I have to watch it.
He's a comedian and talks about strokes, but he's a stroke survivor comedian. So it was really
Keith Robinson, Different Strokes. So
did a great job. Did a really good job. And throughout the whole thing, he was so positive about it. So it's just really like all these movies and this and the comedy special. They're all about hope. I think that's the main takeaway. I think from today, that we should have hope during all of the things that happen to us. So.
Yeah, that's why I really wanted to, and I know there's a lot of red tape in hospitals to support. What I would like to do is when someone actually goes into the ER and they've been diagnosed as having a stroke. I mean, nowadays people don't have to go. You can FaceTime us, right? So I would like to be FaceTimed so that the family knows it's not the end. You know what I'm saying? To bring.
I would too.
Look at me. Look at me. I was in that place. I was in a semi-coma for 1 week. No, but you wouldn't imagine that right now by looking at me. But just have hope. Have hope. Teach them all the things. Support them through it so that they're not only hearing the doctors, because at that particular time, the only thing you trust in is the doctors, right? You don't, I mean, unless you have connection to your church or your synagogue or wherever it is that you need to, I mean, some people need another source of support, and being a stroke survivor, not when they get out of the hospital to rehab, but to be there, because the inception is so important. It's so important to be there for them. It's so important to be there for them.
I agree with that. And I tell you, the hope is really important in changing the way people think, and having something like that available to people is crucial. Example, his parents, we had a very difference of opinion, and they were very, very upset with me when I did not go along with not letting Chris live. And it was very hard. And
I heard all that.
It was really hard. So having something there, or a way to FaceTime and, let people know that there is a chance, that there is,
and honestly, Misty, you'll agree with me. It's just another option, because we cannot give them the medical, no, you got to do this. No, we just want to show you another perspective. There have been people that have had major strokes. Look at Chris, that have survived, and they're well, and they're thriving, and they're still living, and they're living a healthier, better life now than before they had the stroke, which is very hard to imagine. but you're more balanced, right? You're more balanced.
We both are.
Oh yeah,
I used to be so laser focused. I mean, I
me
was
too.
intense.
That's me. Yeah.
That's why we get along. But I was an intense softball player. Third base, like I used to be playing third base. The ball was, I mean, I used to play like close to the pitcher, like I was right up it, but I was so intense that nothing got by me. Like I was so, and that's like a great description of my intensity. But I had to like kind of ease up a little bit. So it's 10 o'clock already. I want to give everybody like a quick uh, few minutes to just share, you know, whatever you like to share with everybody. And I would like to invite you back for either September 15th or October 6th. So just look at your calendars and I'll start a group email so that we can continue this conversation, because we didn't even touch on anything that we were supposed to touch on today. We didn't,
right.
you know, like, we didn't even touch on it. Like Samantha has a bunch of stuff. You have a bunch of stuff. Randy was, so let Samantha go first. Just share the last, you know, whatever you want to leave in people's minds, please.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's a segue off of what you were just saying about creating some type of a community, so that people understand that they're not alone and that there are others that understand their experience. Like that also is how you create a feeling of safety in a community. And it could be, when we say community, we're just talking about life, really, because everything is community, everything is relationships, and everything is the way that we interact with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, physiologically, literally, if I have a community of people, I don't care if it's 2 people, I don't care if it's 50 people, and I feel safe with them because they understand my experience, they're validating my experience, they're not making me feel like I'm crazy, they are telling me it's okay, etc., etc. Physiologically, that sends a message to my nervous system that I am safe. So this isn't like la la la, this is like reality, this is science.
Yeah.
So the more that we can do that, we literally can create a safer world where people feel better in themselves, feel safer, can function better because of that, can interact in their relationships better. So keep showing up authentically for each other and being there for each other.
One more reason to surround yourself with others that have kind of the same mindset. And I always tell people to try to be the brightest part of someone's day. Be the one thing they remember at the end of the day that was good, not the one thing that took them down. Because everything, there's so much that's going to take you down out there. So many things, and life is always going to be hard, and you can't wait until life isn't hard anymore to choose to be happy. So
Who said that?
That quote is by Nightbird.
Nightbird. Yeah.
Oh my God, Nightbird.
I
We
know.
have so much to chat about, so much to
All
chat
right, and then, but I wanted to say that Randy.
I'll come back and play that song.
Yeah, oh yeah. But Randy, you know, you were right, spot on with the hope thing. We've got to give hope to as many people as we can, and we have only scratched the surface. We've got so much work to do, but it's because of people like you all here that we can come together and help people and bring that hope. I want to make a difference, and I know you guys do too.
Yeah.
So this is wonderful that we got to spend some time together. And
sorry it was so short.
Sorry it was so short.
Don't you know, people used to say to me, "Oh, an hour. What are we going to talk about for an hour?" I'm like, believe me. Like once you get it, like what I do is I just set up like the outline of the show, and then we kind of like go where it goes. Like you kind of like, you know, like Randy could bring up an important part, Samantha could bring up an important, like you just kind of let it flow where it's got to go. And that's the faith of just making sure that things are, but it was a great show, and I can't wait to have you all back. And I'll send everybody a text or email so that we could come up with another date in the next month or so that we can continue this conversation, because I think we laid the groundwork today for everybody's work and everybody's mission. And we'll watch those 2 documentaries, Randy, and we'll come back and we'll navigate with them into the show. But we have to go because my other my next guests are in the waiting room. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. This show is to be continued. We have a lot of information from this panel.
Got it.
I mean, it's just incredible. And on 3, we always blow kisses if we feel comfortable. 1, 2, 3. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Talk to
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank
Bye.
Yo no sé qué tú piensas, yo no sé lo que haré, yo no sé lo que estoy perdiendo, yo no sé lo que va a pasar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti, no me puedes oír llorar. El día que caminaste por la puerta, todas las memorias fueron. Mi corazón está vacío, como si tuviera ayer. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. Usted está en mi sueño por la noche. Por favor, no peleemos. Es tan difícil para mí y para ti. Yo, ¿qué puedo hacer? No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír, no me puedes escuchar. No me puedes escuchar llorar, llorar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. I'm always a giver, but I'm never known. And I'm just this lonely man, alone on the river with my heart in my hand. The conversation, they're all dead. The lines cut off inside my head. I left here like a broken man, with no idea of where I stand.